boop. Boop, boop, boop. All right, guess we're streaming. I guess I'm recording. You're at a Dutch angle. Let me fix that. Bop. Okay.
Logitech mailed me a new mouse. When I get home, I'll see if it scrolls.
I'll bet it still has the problem.
Then I'll just,
This mouse is basically perfect. This G502.
I just got the normal Razer mouse with a wire.
Yeah, why? I always wire. I'm never not wiring.
Oh, it's so nice to not have a wire. But I figure if the I like the shape of the wireless one that was with the bad wheel though. Everything about the bad wheel mouse is good except for the bad wheel.
Actually, the wheel on this one, I broke it just because of strenuous play, but I fixed it. I actually took it apart and I put some jimmies in there and I fixed it.
It's perfect other than that bad wheel. So if the new one works, I don't know if I'll take that one to work or take the Razer one to work. And then I've got two mice that are backup mice that totally work. They're just all beat up and dirty.
Because I will say this mouse too, I think is a perfect mouse. Like I have no complaints about this mouse. I love the hell out of it. Especially with the thumb shelf.
I don't like thumb shelf.
I like thumb shelf a lot because I use my thumb a lot. All right. Let's get started. It's Wednesday, July 25th, 2018. I'm Rim.
I'm Scott.
And this is Geek Nights. Tonight, we are reviewing the anime Cells at Work.
What's it called in Japanese?
It doesn't say it in Japanese, in Romanji here. Oh, you were really quiet. Let me check something. It's Wednesday, July 25th, 2018. I'm Rim. Okay.
Hataraku Saibō.
Oh, we already got some people watching. All right.
Go away, people watching. You must have a life somewhere where you can
It's the siren call. We're sirens.
Where you can do a productive thing. And even if you are one of those people who I think is dumb, putting shit on in the background, which means you're not paying attention to it, which means why are you even doing it at all?
I will admit, Scott, I put the Final Fantasy VI glitchless 100% run on in the background and half paid attention.
Do you remember
to
anything from it?
Yeah, I remember a lot of things from it.
No. Anyway, there's something better you can choose.
No, I think this is pretty good.
In fact, this is the Final Fantasy VI glitchless speedrun. It's probably better than this.
The trouble is, it's like 6 hours long.
At 6 hours, you won't listen to us, which is a good idea.
All right, let's do this. Let's see. I got an opening bit. I guess we can talk about the ride, too. Boop. So, yeah, we did that bike ride. We also had to camp in a pretty heavy rainstorm. I think you had to get up while the rain was still going to start your bike ride.
So what happened is the night before, I'm like, well, if it rains, as long as it's not raining so hard that I can't bike at all, right? Won't be, and it's like, because what am I doing after biking? It's not like as long as I can bike safely, it doesn't matter if I'm wet. It's not like I'm going.
See, so in my opinion, no amount of rain by itself makes biking unsafe. I have biked home from work in New York, like 7 miles, in driving, sheeting rain.
I have been caught in driving rain. The problem is there are occasions where if the rain is too much, you can't go as fast. If you got to go up a steep hill and it's rain, it might slip and fall down because not enough traction.
If going in a straight line uphill, you could slip in the rain. Your tires were already in a bad state.
I'm just saying it could happen.
Nah.
It could be a slippery patch, going over a metal thing. There's, and the rain could be so much you can't even see.
I biked home once in rain where I actually couldn't see.
I would stop and wait till I could see. And then you could have a situation where it's flooded and it's too deep.
So one time, me and Ken were biking through the woods. This was back when I was in high school. And we're following the trail, and we're pretty far away from home. And there's just horrible thunderstorms going. And we come to a place where we basically cross a river, and the Clinton River, and it's flooded. So we just kind of biked through it. And it was basically, I was biking in water that was up to my neck while I was on the bike. And we totally made it to the other side, and it was totally fine.
Yeah, I'm not doing that when I've got like.
The only drawback was after we were done.
I'm not going to bring all my stuff through the water.
Yeah. See, this was an era. Remember, before cell phones, let alone smartphones. And why would I carry my wallet when I'm in high school biking around? So the only thing I had in my pocket was a key to get back into my house.
But anyway, so when I woke up, the rain wasn't too bad, and I was getting ready to go. And then at like I'm supposed to start at 7.
Yep. I didn't have to start till like 8:30.
At 6:45, it starts raining like more. It's not raining. It's like borderline. We're like, right?
I was in the tent, and I was lately listening to that rain thinking, yeah, I ain't getting up yet.
So I go over to
I had to pee. I wouldn't even get up and go pee.
I already registered. I went to the registration booth, and I was like, hey, if I go and the rain slows me down too much and I don't make it back in time, they're like, oh, yeah, just call us this number. We'll bring you back to the beginning. We'll parachute you to a further destination. We'll do whatever you want. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, fuck it. I came out here. I just started biking. There's no one else out there. But there's like the one person waving me on, like, all right, go ahead. And I go out there, and I encountered this tree. And it's not a...
What, like an ant? Like, did it attack
It's not
you?
an enormous tree. It was maybe like, 5 inches diameter, but nice,
That's
solid,
pretty big. That's a real tree.
solid tree. Not a, it was a young tree, but not a baby just born tree. Right?
Ain't no twig.
No. And it was across the path, and I could have just picked up my bike, gone over it, and kept going. But I'm like, nope, I got to move this tree. So
Yeah, because there's going to be hundreds and hundreds of bikers behind you.
So the bottom of the tree is sort of still not completely detached, and the top of the tree has many branches that are interfering with these still living trees on the other side of the path. So I can't move it very effectively. And then one person comes up behind me, and I wave at them, and it's another guy biking. He comes, and we both move the tree. He's much stronger than me in the arm department. And now there's no one else. And it took us a while to move the tree. No one else came. Nobody. So we just start biking together. He's going on the same path as me.
See, I guess it did, because my route actually went the opposite direction to start. So I wouldn't have even encountered the tree.
So I just hung out with this dude, Chris from Ohio, who apparently does this ride every year. He's apparently 20 years older than me. And we went about the same speed. But then when there was like maybe 10 miles left, I was like, bleh. And he was still just fine.
So, almost, because I ride a hybrid, but it's a fancy, like it's a light hybrid. But most people don't think that you could get a fancy hybrid. But I'm biking, doing my thing. Almost a dozen people came up behind me on the road bikes, rode next to me on this 80-mile ride, and turned and said basically the exact same thing. I can't believe you're doing this on a hybrid.
I saw lots of hybrid bikes. I don't know why anyone would say that to you.
So I did not see a single hybrid bike on my route until I joined the 40-mile route at the end. On the 80-mile route, at no point did I see a hybrid.
I saw a hybrid, but I don't know. I wasn't
On
paying
your
attention
route?
to what route I was on.
Because, until my route bumped into, like, the people who were going
My
basically
route had
nowhere.
this section that was exclusive to the baby. This is the baby 100.
Yep.
Which is basically go out of your way in this loop to go to a high school, then go all the way back and rejoin everyone else at the end.
Meanwhile, my 80 did.
We saw almost nobody out there.
My 80.
That rest stop had like a few kids. And like manning, a table full of snacks and nothing else.
My 80-mile route did all the 2 hard parts of the real 100, but then it skipped this like 20-mile section at the end that was not hard. But I'm glad I didn't do that last 20 miles.
Anyway, but yeah, and then I saw a former coworker there. It was just like, oh, free foods.
One thing I thought was funny though is 100% of the people who made a comment about my hybrid, I passed and never saw again. So.
It's not a race.
No, but I like to go fast. I made good time. I averaged about 14 miles an hour, including brakes, which is pretty good for a ride like that. But anyway, it's anime day, so we're not going to talk about biking anymore unless we're talking about a biking anime. And there's a lot of news because SDCC just happened. Even though you should probably never go to SDCC.
We're usually mad short on Wednesday news. Now we got a big pile of Wednesday news. We're going to use it all up, and then we're going to be out in 2 weeks. We won't have any.
So let's start with yours. What do you got here?
So at San Diego Comic-Con, they have the Eisner Awards. So the big news with the Eisner Awards this year is that for the first time ever, what actually award did they give Rumiko Takahashi?
This is your news. I didn't read shit.
Yeah, whatever award she got is an award of the Voter's Choice. Oh, Hall of Fame. So I guess she's the first woman in the Eisner Awards Hall of Fame.
Well, the headline says it best. Awards honor female manga creator writer for first time.
Yep. So also, I mean, there are other awards that females have won. It's not like the first time a woman's ever won an Eisner Award, but it is the first time a woman has won Hall of Fame, and also the first time someone's won Best Writer. It was actually a tie for Best Writer. But
with Tom King.
Tom King, who's a Batman guy, and Marjorie Liu, the first woman to ever win Best Writer. I think her book Monstrous also won like Best Continuing Series, and the Tea Dragon Society, which I had thought about buying a few times because I've seen it.
I love the art in Tea Dragon
I didn't realize
Society.
it was also a webcomic. It won like 2 or 3 awards. So yeah, like Monstrous and Tea Dragon Society were big winners here. And also another big winner was the Akira 35th Anniversary Edition.
Oh,
so,
yeah, it's Best Publication Design.
Yeah, well, also I think Best U.S. Edition of Foreign Material. Oh,
Makes
no.
sense.
Oh, no, I think it was Best... Best U.S. Edition of International Material Asia was My Brother's Husband, which Volume 2 is coming out, by the way.
Oh, yeah, I got to read that.
But it was Best Archival Collection Comic Books, and also Best Publication Design.
Yeah, Best U.S. Edition of International Material went for Run For It, Stories of Slaves Who Fought for Freedom.
Yeah, they separate the Asia category so that, because otherwise manga, I guess, would always win, or manga would never win because they'd always pick a French thing.
Yeah.
Or a bond designee, whatever you want to call it.
Well, I mean, like how the comics industry in the U.S. just pretends that all of Asia doesn't exist because otherwise their numbers are meaningless.
Right. It's also, I guess, to keep manga from beating some, some mangaka for winning Best Writer. I don't know if that's, anyway. The point is, so if you don't know, when Akira was first published in English in the U.S., it was from Dark Horse. And Otomo, the creator of Akira, he helped them flip it so it would be left to right. And he also isn't, I guess he's better than Zero at English. I mean, I don't know how good at English he is, but I think he had some input in the translation and like the redoing of the sound effects and stuff like that. And then there was that Dark Horse edition took a while to come out. I bought it when I was at RIT still. It was still coming out. I think I finished getting it with New Year and Beacon. I don't remember.
Yeah, I vaguely remember all that.
It's 6 volumes. Anyway, they put it out again. Kodansha put it out again. And it was pretty much a reprint of almost the exact same thing. I think there were some differences, but not major differences. The new one is the first English edition. It's basically the same, only as the Kodansha edition, but it's been flipped over, so it's finally right to left instead of left to right. And also it comes in a fancy box, and that's what that publication of it, right, is what won the awards. So yeah, if you haven't read Akira and you've only seen Akira,
now's the time.
I mean, you're missing out on like one of the best mangas comics that has ever been. So I don't know.
Missing out on the actual story.
And it's readily available. I don't know if it's available digitally, but whatever price they're charging for that box, if you don't have any version of it, is totally worth it.
Like even we, as much as we're trying to remove physical objects from our personal possession, it's worth it to own Akira or at least have it long enough to read it.
Have you even read it? I don't think you have.
I read the first 2 volumes when you were getting it at Beacon, and I never actually finished it.
Yeah, you don't know nothing.
Yeah. So in some other news that's actually pretty interesting. So if you recall, there was the New York Comic Con, which was pretty rinky-dink in the early days and slowly got bigger. We used to like go to it and do panels and
I went to it maybe 2 times.
I went to it almost every year because they kept giving me the free badge every year. And then I'd stopped responding and taking the free badges. And then eventually they stopped emailing me. And then they wanted nothing to do with us. But New York Comic Con basically got more painful to go to and less fun every year that it ran. And we're not going to get into that. But there was also a New York Anime Festival.
Which started off as its own thing that I went to once.
Yeah, I went to it a bunch of 2 times.
Oh, maybe we went to, I don't remember.
We went to it even the last year it existed, even semi-independent.
Right. So So we went to it when it was its own event.
Ghetto.
Right, and then it was incorporated into New York Comic Con in the same building.
In the same way that an amoeba incorporates a poor bacterium into itself.
Right. It was in the same building, but it was in a different area of the same building.
And
so
it was
sort of like
basically
it was like 2 conventions were going on in the same building at once, but there was a separate area with its own panel rooms and a little stage and its own little biz that was physically adjacent, and your 1 ticket got you into both things.
Except the New York Anime Festival part got the short end of every possible stick.
It was like, it was like segregation.
So the funniest thing was, it was more crowded.
Not human rights violating.
It was more crowded. than the Comic-Con part. More people were trying to go to the anime part. The panels were all completely full because they didn't give enough space. Basically, fans of anime really wanted to go to the New York Anime Festival, but the New York Comic-Con only makes its money from the Hollywood comic-y
You
stuff.
don't make any money from fan panels.
Nope. So they basically just got rid of the anime
The thing
part.
I remember most is that when we went to the incorporated one, the thing I remember the most is that we were doing our panel, and the panel before us were people from Krypton Future Media, and there was the creator of Hatsune Miku, who was like the software, not the character, was on that panel, and I talked to him about like what computers he had.
That was a good panel.
Yeah.
But yes, the New York Anime Festival was basically destroyed by the Comic-Con, and the Comic-Con itself is, in our opinion, unattendable because it's like SDCC, but lower rent.
Mm-hmm.
So independently of that, there's a new anime convention we've talked about run by all the smart people who used to run things like the New York Comic-Con, New York Anime Festival back when they were a lot better, like real smart people. But the news here is that the New York Comic-Con is bringing back their anime festival, but this time they're doing it partnering with Anime Expo, which runs basically the worst anime convention.
Right,
the biggest and the worst.
So Anime Expo is going to run a different convention at the same time as New York Comic-Con, the same weekend, in a different location.
Yeah.
So you're gonna have to go from the Javits down to Pier something.
Pier 94.
Ride a bike down the path, I guess.
So here's the thing I'm going to point out. They put this convention in a place that no convention should go. There's no subway. There's no good buses. There's no hotels.
There might be a bus, I don't know, but
There's
it's
no
not
good buses.
It's not an easy place to get to. The only convenient way to get to this place is with the two B's, boat. I think there's a helicopter pad next to it too. You can take a helicopter there.
Yeah.
Even if you have a car, it's not good to go. It's not a place you can go easily, even with a car. I guess you can take a taxi, would get you there, an Uber. But point is, you're not gonna be able to switch between New York Comic Con and this new New York Anime Festival replacement thing easily.
But even worse, because the people who are running it are the Anime Expo people.
Right.
Yeah. Like I'm confident, even if you go. I mean, maybe we'll be wrong. We don't know. I suspect it's going to be a shit show, and it's not going to be fun.
No, and so basically, if you buy a badge to New York Comic Con, you can just go to this thing because it's included. But they're also going to sell a badge to just the anime thing. But I don't know if that badge will get you into New York Comic Con. I think it will get you into just the anime part.
Okay, so tickets for Thursday are $20.
That's cheap.
Or they're $15 if you have a New York Comic Con badge.
Oh, for Thursday.
Yeah.
But what about the? But I think
Friday's $15, Saturday's $20, Sunday's $20.
I thought it's just free if you have a New York Comic Con badge.
No, tickets will be available to people with verification accounts.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to have the account, the special one that's verified, that you would use to buy a New York Comic Con badge.
So if you got to pay extra,
and
no one's going over there.
Yeah, you get you get a $5 discount if you already bought a goddamn New York Comic Con badge to go to this.
That $5 doesn't make up for the money you got to spend to get over there.
I do not know why this is happening. Well, no, I do know why.
Well, it seems like a lot of the big cons, PAX did the best of spreading out all over the place.
Yep.
But it seems like the other cons, even, MagFest is like, oh, well, we got to have a Mag West, and Otakon is Otakon Vegas, and it's like the cons are starting to just start more.
Well, because there's multiple things going on.
Cons that can't get bigger, they start opening more conventions in more places, and that's not a good idea. So Anime Expo has never had another con in another place. They're trying to open up a con in a different place.
I think there's even more factors going on. There is crazy huge demand for conventions of nerdy stuff. Anime conventions, gaming conventions, comic conventions. The demand is insatiable and enormous, and there's literally no place in America that can actually host these events effectively. But simultaneously, the only way to make money from these things, like real money, unless you're PAX and you know the secret sauce, like PAX does really well for themselves, but especially Comic Cons, is to basically get people into your stupid event and pay for a badge and out as fast as possible. You don't want people hanging out in your convention for 4 days like they do at the good cons that fans actually want to go to. So there's this constant tension between the things that cons can do to make money and cater to the industry versus the things that fans of cons, as opposed to people who hear about a con and go to one for one day, want. And I feel like this is going to be yet another one of those not fun corporate style cons. I don't think it'll affect the good anime con in New York at all. And we'll see how it goes, but I'm definitely not going to it. October 4th through 7th, nah.
No.
In some other con news that's even sadder and worse, you've probably seen a lot of talk about Worldcon.
So we've talked about Worldcon in the past on Geek Nights. If you don't know, Worldcon is basically sort of like the oldest school original sci-fi con that there has ever been, fantasy sci-fi con there's ever been, and it's been around forever. And it's it's like, think about the most stereotypical con of like old crusty dudes with beards. This is it. And the way it works is like it travels around to a different place every year, which makes it Worldcon. And it's usually, what they give out, the Hugo Awards there?
Yep.
Or is it the...
Now, the Hugo...
It's one of those awards.
The Hugo Awards, remember...
It's the Hugo ones, right? It's not the other one, right? The other award.
The Hugo Awards, the whole ballot thing. We've talked about this on Geek
Right,
Nights
the way
before.
they vote on them there, it's like you got to go to Worldcon.
And remember, that is the thing where basically Gomergate people who called themselves the Sad Puppies tried to sabotage it and continue to
right, because that's the kind of person who goes to Worldcon. It's weird. Like the people who go to Worldcon will be like the world's best, most famous sci-fi fantasy authors and sad, crusty dudes with beards.
But anyway, the reason Worldcon's in the news yet again, because usually when
I'm surprised it still exists. Like who's keeping this thing afloat?
Tons of people go. It's well known and popular. It's been going for 76 years.
Where even is it this year?
I don't know, because I'm not gonna go. Even way back when we won the Parsec Award, we didn't even go to get the award.
That wasn't at Worldcon.
No, it wasn't. But even when we win awards, we don't show up.
That was
to
at
Dragon
Con.
I think it was Dragon Con.
It was Dragon Con.
I've never gone to Dragon Con either. But basically, the gist of this story, and I'm not going to get into all the details of it because you can read this, is that they have people who set up their panels. And people who go to fan-run conventions, at least, kind of expect this low bar of how panels are run at conventions. It's very rare that fan conventions have well-organized, well-run panel content. Or at least the people who organize the panels. It's very rare that they're good people who know what they're doing running this stuff. So a lot of the problems that happened are literally the same problems that pretty much every fan con has, but they're exacerbated by the fact that the people that the unqualified people are scheduling the panels for are Hugo nominees, professional authors, like people who are professional and serious and have fandoms and know what they're doing, who aren't going to put up with the crap that generally goes on at fan conventions. Simultaneously, I suspect that because the people who run Worldcon are probably, on average, old cishet white dudes, that they did things like dead naming authors. They did things like just finding or making up bios about them and just putting on the website. They also apparently took suggestions for panels, which some cons do. It's always weird when cons like collaborate with people to run panels. MagFest kind of does that.
What do you mean suggestions?
Like the Mages thing. Like they come to us and they're like, all right, everyone tell us the panels you want to do, and then we'll, from there, separately allocate people to be on those panels.
Oh, I see.
A lot of like sci-fi cons do that. It's not really a thing in gaming cons, except the MagFest Mages, but I digress. But they basically took the suggestions from a lot of the authors and a lot of the Hugo Award nominees, but then they didn't schedule any of the people who happen to be women or persons of color somehow. They scheduled all these white dudes, and they made all these arguments about how, well, we scheduled based on what we expect the attendees, the core audience of Worldcon to see, and it's both. I think there's both.
They're basically saying, what I want to see. I believe I'm the core audience.
Yeah, so I think it's a combination of both cishet white dude.
And clearly the people in the guest and people clearly in the guest relations department aren't bad because they're inviting all these guests. It's just the person in the panels department is a shit.
Well, they're inviting these guests, but they're not actually putting them on any panels.
So they could be. I'm saying if that, imagine if the panels person was in charge of guest relations, those people wouldn't have even been at Worldcon.
Yep.
Right. So
now I suspect that if I had to guess, I'd say that half of this is incompetence. And then a quarter of it is cishet white dude ignorance, and another quarter of it is active malice. That's my guess of the ratio of all these problems, because not to name names of any particular conventions, but I want to give a brief litany of things like this that have personally happened to me or me and Scott at conventions. We showed up at a convention once that scheduled us without telling us. that put a bio of Geek Nights on their page that someone wrote on their own without consulting us, and they found a logo that wasn't our logo but was close enough, so sure. We showed up at a convention once that scheduled us.
I don't remember any of this.
These were all of these were at one particular convention.
Okay.
We showed up one year, and they had actually scheduled the same panels we did the previous year, that year again, instead of the panels they told us they scheduled. And I remember sitting there for a few minutes going through their schedule, finding the panels that looked like they were ours, and just showing up to them assuming we had to run them.
Mm-hmm.
I have been adjacent to panel staff that did things like Worldcon did, like literally going to someone's Facebook page, copy-pasting information from their profile, and just putting it on the convention website. So a lot of these things happen commonly at low-rent conventions or poorly run conventions, usually because the people running the panels departments have no idea what they're doing. I mean, they're either not paid or they're paid at best minimum wage for the small amount of time they actually work. But usually they're just not paid, even if the cons are for profit. So you can read this article if you want to see the real utter shit show that this was. But the result was all these authors were like, you know what? Screw it. We're not even coming now. Never mind. You had your chance. We're not even going to bother attending. And now Worldcon has responded by basically saying they're tearing apart their panels department and they're starting over with the programming, even though that's obviously too little too late. And I am confident they will not be able to find people who are competent to solve this problem in time. And I don't think any of those authors are going to change their minds and decide to attend.
Listen, Worldcon and the Hugo Awards only have any respect because people, I guess, give it respect, right? Publishers put on their books like Hugo Award nominee, Hugo Award winner. Authors continue to go to Worldcon.
Yeah, why doesn't Worldcon go to the publishers? And
why don't these publishers? It's like stop respecting the Hugo Award as an award that matters and stop putting it on your books. Just ignore it. Right? Authors, just ignore it. Stop going to Worldcon. I guess it's easy to say as not an author. Someone's going to tell me like I shouldn't tell them what to do, and they're probably right.
Yeah.
But
I think there's an easier
it's
way
like
to
you
go.
could easily just kill the power of the authors can definitely just kill Worldcon, make something else, make your own goddamn award. You could buy them out. I know Worldcon has like one of those stupid crazy governance systems also, right? Somebody could also stage an operation where you could basically brigade, the evil brigaders of Worldcon and take it over. Right?
Yeah.
You just get enough people to go there and work within their constitution or whatever, and you can just take that thing over, right?
Now,
and
this
if
is actually why that makes a very subtle
if
point.
I was a group of awesome, not old white dude sci-fi fantasy authors, I would get together with my publishers and my fans and do exactly that. And
but there's the
save
subtle
us
point.
from the Worldcon.
Reading between the lines of what you said, if the Hugo Awards were a big deal in terms of like books actually selling and things, publishers would just game the system. I feel like the fact that no one appears to just use money to game the system, except those Gomergators, implies that it isn't worth their time or money to do it. But the other thing is, if Worldcon's serious about this and they want the Hugo Awards to be treated with respect, you could hire one person who knows what they're doing to do this part for your convention. Like, pay them a per diem.
They think they know what they're doing. They're old, crusty dudes.
I mean,
you ever met an old, crusty dude with a beard who wants to get advice from someone else?
Well, the other
think
thing
someone
is-
else knows better than they know?
so I'm going to quote from this article because apparently they send an email to a lot of these people of color and women who are not.
You ever tried to give a suggestion on like board game strategy to a grognard? They think they know best.
Yep.
You can't possibly.
Quote, there's a generation of new Hugo finalists who are exciting to the nominators, but completely unfamiliar to the attendees. So one of their core arguments was the white dudes who come to Worldcon don't care about all that content. So the convention has to cater to the people who actually attend, but that is why so many anime cons have such shit programming, because they cater to the
Instead of starting our own convention, let's just get a bunch of money and buy Worldcon. Whoever, like, it has to be owned by someone. We can just buy it. They have a price. We'll just buy the whole thing and rescue it.
I know of two
then
other...
we can piggyback on its like legacy.
I know of other conventions.
And then we can just get...
that
We
we
don't
could
even have to
buy.
run it because we're white dudes. We should find some not white, not dudes to run it.
Yeah.
And then we can just protect it.
But more
With
importantly,
a trust or something.
you got to do what PAX does, or what we used to do at Kineticon, and actually we did really well, I think, is even though the attendees of a con say they want X, They don't know shit. They don't know what they want. You trick them. It's top down at conventions. The people who run the convention set the tone and set the stage. If they schedule things, they can make those things popular.
It's not just conventions. It's everything in life. You tell people what they want. You make people want what you want them to want.
All right. I think we killed enough time. Do. But anyway, things of the day. So, Mike Tyson's Punch-Out is a super good game that I like. But one funny thing about it, well, two funny things about it. So one, the Nintendo Entertainment System, like the NES, its core system, if you don't put special chips in the cartridges, is not really actually more powerful than an Atari 7800. Like, they're similarly powered equipment, and early NES games aren't really better than Atari 7800 games. But then they did this thing with these MMC chips, these memory mappers, and there's this whole story of like the MMC1 and the MMC3 and how they could make different games that did different cool things.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's why the NES was able to live so long, right? The NES that at the beginning had games like baseball.
Yep.
And then it also had games like Kirby's Adventure and Mario 3. And it's like, how did that same console do both of those games?
And the answer is you just put more chips in the cartridge.
Yeah, it's basically, right? It's just like, that's why the NES could live so long. Whereas, other systems, right, had pretty much like the same shit going on from beginning to end.
But there's this special, of all those chips, the MMC2 was special because only one game ever used it. Because that
I think there were more than one.
One game, Mike Tyson's Punch-Out. And
even if you were a kid, not knowing anything about technology, you knew that Punch-Out was just different from all the other Nintendo games.
Yep, there's a lot of...
You could just tell.
Yep, there's a lot of weird stuff with Mike Tyson's Punch-Out. But one of the cool things about it is that there's this crowd in the background. Like this giant kind of dynamic crowd that's moving around and cheering and stuff. And people who are good at the game, the crowd's movement and the things they do, like someone takes a picture, someone reacts in the crowd, a camera flash like those kinds of things. In the early parts of the game, the fighter himself, like the guy you're punching to death, would like twitch before he punched you, and that's how you play the game. But later, the only way to predict what they were going to do is to notice these cues from the crowd.
Yeah, well, because it's RNG, but you can tell what the RNG seed is based on what the crowd is doing, because it's only got one RNG seed.
But it was arguably on purpose, too, to provide this sort of natural feedback mechanism to make the game difficult, but also make it so that you could naturally start to figure things out. But there's one dude in the background wearing sunglasses who just sits there. He only sits in one spot, like he's not copied. He never does anything in the whole game, except in one fight against one person. There's one move where he will lower his sunglasses and go, oh, right before a thing happens. And if you just so happen to punch at the moment he does that with frame-perfect timing, he will never put his sunglasses back up. And in fact, the crowd freezes. And it turns out that if the crowd freezes, the game freezes. And once you win or lose this fight, the game soft locks and cannot be continued. And if you lost the fight, Macho Man just keeps twitching his pecs forever. And this video explains in detail
Super
why
Macho Man.
Yeah, Super Macho Man.
Not regular Macho Man is Randy Savage. Oh, yeah.
Snap into a Slim Jim.
Super Macho Man is a different person.
Yes. So this video is a pretty good explanation in 3 minutes of how and why this happened and how they fixed it. And how they fixed it is pretty funny. So you got a thing of the day?
Yeah, so I think most, at least English-speaking children, right? They learned at the foot of the Dr. Seuss.
Not Dr. Sweet?
No, Dr. Seuss.
With the grown-up beats?
With the cat in the hat.
Yep.
And the ham and the egg. Anyway, my favorite Dr. Seuss. I don't know about you. What's your favorite Dr. Seuss?
It's really hard to say. Oh my God. I think I actually like the Lorax the most.
My favorite is also Lorax, and I've mostly read.
Well, you don't know why, because he speaks for the trees.
And there's animated Lorax, which is totally creepy.
But I really liked it because of how creepy it was.
I love that Lorax. I love the book Lorax and the movie Lorax.
I also really like the switcheroo machine, the one with the stars on the chests and the non-stars on the chests.
I don't know.
You don't remember that one?
No. Anyway. Lorax is #1 Dr. Seuss book there is, if you ask Scott. Anyway, so here is an article, and what the hell is this? It's like a real journal of ecology or something, right? And it's written by a bunch of anthropologists, and they are basically provide this incredible, very well supported scientific anthropological argument that the Lorax is probably this specific kind of monkey, because what happened is Dr. Seuss apparently had writer's block around, what, like 1970 something, and went to some place in Kenya. And when he was in the place in Kenya, he was bored and wrote like 90% of the Lorax in like one night or something like that. And the Lorax and the trees, the tuffula trees from the Lorax, have great resemblance to specific monkey and specific kind of tree from Kenya. And yeah, that's pretty cool.
This goes into
somebody would care about it that much.
This goes into
in such
shocking detail,
in such serious scientific evaluation. Right?
I'm very
it's not
happy
just like
about this.
it's not just like a tweet like, "Yo, I'm pretty, check it out." It's sort of like, "Whoa, you wrote a whole scientific journal article about this. Why?"
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
In the meta moment, if you're a fan of the Geek Nights book club, you might be happy to know that we talked about Emily Wilson's translation of Homer's Odyssey. I'm just waiting for Scott to pick the next book.
And
depending on
I'm
what
thinking
he picks,
about it.
Depending on what he picks, because Scott said something to me the other day, and what he said was, "I feel like I should pick a bad book."
No.
Because all I'm going to say is that if you pick the wrong book, I'm going into the Forgotten Realms with the next book.
Oh, you know what? Actually, you see, you always used to threaten to go to
Senor Galdacan and Senor Maldak.
No, you always threatened to go to.
Oh yeah, to Dumas.
Yes.
I'm kind of feeling reading the Count of Monte Cristo again. That good translation.
Right, but at Forgotten Realms, as bad as it would be,
It is short.
it would take me like a day to read about Elminster.
Actually,
and
though,
the red mages or whatever.
If I follow my rule of picking, I'm glad that you were actually able to name two things from Forgotten Realms. The
There's
red
also
mages,
the guy you hate with the two swords.
Oh, Drizzt Do'Urden. Fuck those Drizzt books. There's a hierarchy of people who like Forgotten Realms. There's the quote-unquote good books. Then
we all know that if you pick a Forgotten Realms book, it's going to be a frou-frou elf book with some elven bard sword guy.
Yeah, they're basically called Elven Bard Sword.
Yeah, that's what Rim played. That's who Rim
That's what
is.
I played. That's what I read.
That's who you are.
That's the top tier. Though the Volo stuff is pretty fun, and also
Voldo. It's not Soul Calibur.
Volo, not Voldo. But the tier under that is Drizzt. Drizzt, like when I was 14 and these books were the best, I looked down at the Drizzt kids like, "Oh, what are you reading this Drek? I'm reading this high caliber elven bard shit, and you're reading about this dark elf who's so dark. Oh my god."
At least can we read like a Mind Flayer book or something?
But then there's a tier below that, and the tier below that is the Cleric's Quintet. I would not make you read that.
Is there a book about a beholder or something?
That'd be like Pool of Radiance style, which is also not actually good.
I mean, none of it's good, right?
Actually, though, I'd probably pick a Planescape book, because if I had to pick the best D&D book ever, it's probably Pages of Pain, which is...
Well, I mean, isn't the best game the Planescape Torment?
Yeah, so Planescape Torment and the book Pages of Pain are very similar and adjacent to one another.
It starts with some dude waking up being like, "What the fuck is going on?"
Basically, yes, and it actually
is Planescape Tournament and just the Torment just the video game version of that book.
So it is adjacent to our recent book club as well. Get into some Greek myth.
The Odyssey. Oh, I figured out what book it's gonna be.
Oh, you figured it out? You gonna reveal now? Or you gonna
no,
save
we'll
it?
wait till next episode.
Okay, that's fine. Otherwise, because you're listening to this episode of Geek Nights, you're obviously a fan of our anime reviews, or you got tricked. But we did already review the show we're about to talk about on Geek Nights Judges Anime by Its Cover, our YouTube show that is on YouTube right now. You can go watch it. So you can both listen to our review of this anime before we watched it, and now you're about to listen to our review after we watched 3 episodes. So, yeah, let's get right into it, I think. So, Cells at Work.
Right. So I actually knew about this before the judging a little bit. There's basically, I don't know, I think it's a manga, right?
It is based on a manga.
Right. So what it is
a shonen manga that runs in, let's see, Kodansha.
I feel like there have been
still
other...
running, started in 2015.
I feel like there have been
volumes.
other anime and manga in this genre before.
Well, wait, the genre of Gajinka or the genre of, like, let's go inside the body and see what it's up to?
No. It's almost two different genres, right? There's the one genre of the sort of educational anime manga, such as Moyashiman, where it's like, okay, this is an anime manga with sort of a normal generic plot, but we're going to spend a lot of time educating you about a thing, right?
But educating you in a extremely superficial manner.
Right. Well, somewhat superficial.
Moyashiman is pretty goddamn superficial.
Right. It's like the amount of education you get varies a lot, right? You could say Initial D educates you about cars, right? But actually, as awful as it is, I'm going to make a true statement, is that True Bra teaches you more about underwear than Initial D teaches you about cars.
That is both awful and 100% accurate.
Right. So, so there's the educational aspect, but then there's also the, okay, take a thing that is not a whole system that is not people and personify it, right?
Yep.
So
basically make it an analogy to teach you about the thing, but also be entertaining.
Right. So instead of showing you, just an educational film about the human body, it's like, okay, well, all red blood cells will be characters, all white blood cells will be characters, all the platelets will be characters, we'll turn all the cells in the human body into characters and put them in a world, that looks like a fantasy world, civilization, city kind of place, complex, and have them behave in such a way that matches the way the human body works to some extent, and such and such.
So
and
the things I'll say about
that's what this is.
Yeah, so the show basically follows this red blood cell who follows the trope of she gets lost all the time, which just gives us an excuse to see all these different parts of the body.
It's this really easy sort of trope of like, okay, in the first episode, we want to sort of show you around, have you meet all these characters at least for 1 second each, show you all the parts of the body.
Yep.
We'll have the red blood cell get lost. And then the second episode, I didn't watch the third episode. There's only 3 episodes.
Yep.
I only watched a little bit of the third episode because I had to start doing this show.
Yeah. Well, there's only 3 out. Like the 4th one, food poisoning, isn't even out yet.
Right. And basically, each episode, the plot is red blood cell gets lost. Red blood cell encounters some harm that is coming to the body. White blood cell and
who she has a crush on.
Yes, and white blood cell and many other cells come to the rescue and solve the problem, restoring health to the body.
Yep.
And then there's another episode, and it's completely episodic. There is no connection between the episodes other than recognizing the characters.
At least so far. The one connection I can point out is that whatever body this is not doing well.
No, in episode 1, they let you know that the body is immunocompromised to some extent.
And then,
it doesn't seem to have hemophilia, but it has a shortage of immune.
But look, episode 1, I think he gets pneumonia. The person. Episode 2, they get a big old cut, and all this bacteria comes in.
Well, they didn't put on any Neosporin or a Band-Aid. What the fuck's wrong with them?
Flu is episode 3, and episode 4 is food poisoning, so I suspect this person is making poor choices.
I hope we get to see some poop in episode 4.
I think we definitely will. There's going to be some poop
or some
if it's
vomit.
food poisoning. But
bile.
The thing, I like this show. Like, I'm actually going to keep watching it. Like, it's not... It is definitely better than Attack on Titan.
Yeah, sure.
Because things actually happen. Like... Shows like this can very easily be very bland and very surface level and like not go anywhere, but they actually, I'm not going to speak to the accuracy of the analogies to any significant detail.
Because what the hell do I know about biology?
But
the basics, way less. I know even less than this show is teaching.
This show is deeply invested in making the analogies way more complex than you would expect. Like, it goes way deeper. Like, I'm not saying
And they try
deep.
to teach you words. Like, they try to teach you about the different types of white blood cells. Like, that's a lymphocyte, and that one's a killer T cell.
Neutrophil and the macrophages.
And that one's a macrophage.
And it's shockingly detailed in that regard. Like, I like how the platelets are just these cute little kids, and everyone, when they're
The show tries real hard to be cute.
And it kind of works because they are really cute.
If you like cute things.
But I think that the most interesting part of this is that it also doesn't go out of its way to over-explain things. Like, the analogies will just sort of fit. So
if you're going to be a super stickler about, like, if you actually know anything about biology and you're one of those people who's like, it's not exactly perfectly accurate, well, you're going to be pissed off at this show.
But it's also way more accurate than you would otherwise expect.
Yes.
In, like, there's a naive white blood cell, like a naive T cell in episode 3, and he's scared and doesn't know what to do. And then a dendrite cell is like, listen, dude, it's okay. And he tells him what to do, and then he evolves into the right kind. Like, that's kind of what happens in the immune system. Like, it follows that to a pretty deep level, but it'll use proper nouns in a plausible context, but it won't then always just have a character explain, like, the spleen is where X happens. It sort of lets you, the viewer, figure these things out on your own. I actually really appreciate that, because in the first episode, the red blood cell gets lost, and she accidentally goes into the spleen, and there's this very tranquil-looking woman who's like, may I help you? And she's like, I think I'm lost. She's like, yeah, I think you are. And the red blood cell leaves. And that's really funny because the spleen basically destroys old red blood cells and recycles their parts. So the red blood cell wandering in there, that was funny. And I feel like that's going to come back later. But the show, like, a less well-done show would have explained what the spleen does right there, and instead of being funny, it just would have dragged out this boring scene.
At the end of episode 2, the cute platelets make a big, like, a mesh to cover up the wound, and then all the cells get stuck on it and make a big scab.
Yep,
and, and it's like, oh my god, we're stuck here. Like, yeah, you'll be stuck here for like 3 days.
Yep.
The end.
But I actually like the show. Like, I'm gonna keep watching it. It's cute. It's lighthearted. It's basically.
I don't
exactly
think it's not like the kind of show that I'm gonna watch religiously. Like, if I'm not gonna like be like, oh my god, is there a new episode out? Gotta watch it right away. But it's sort of like, I'll watch this.
Yeah, like
I got nothing else. Why not?
If I'm sitting around not doing much, this is a show.
There's worse things you could watch.
Like more Attack on Titan. 'Cause I really liked Attack on Titan, but more happens in one episode of this show than happened in like the last 5 episodes of Attack on Titan.
There's only one thing in this show that super, super bothers me a lot.
All right, I'm curious.
So basically, you sort of have this, well, one thing that bothers me only a little bit is that even though you got this biological aspect going on, the show really is just sort of a generic monster of the week, or that some bacteria or virus or whatever. Right?
But to be fair, that is sort of literally how our bodies are.
Yeah, they're just fighting something every episode, right? It's still like a monster of the week.
Yeah, but a positive point, it's a shonen show. The fighting's actually pretty well done. Like, the white blood cell just fucking carries a knife and stabs him to death. Like, it's pretty...
Yeah, but the thing that gets me the most is that in those fight scenes...
I think Emily's bothered by the same thing I think you're going to say.
The white blood cell cuts up some bacteria, which is just a monster.
Yeah, with his knife, and what comes out of that monster?
And then the white blood cell is then covered in blood.
Yeah.
So wait.
Yeah.
How does this... Is that blood that is on the white blood cell itself a whole bunch of even more microscopic cells that are themselves personified if we were to zoom in even more?
I have 2 things to say about that, because Emily was bothered by that.
How the fuck does that work?
We were watching it together, and
that makes no goddamn sense.
Every time he stabbed a motherfucker, Emily was like, that doesn't make sense.
Bacteria don't even have blood.
Well,
viruses don't have blood.
Here are the 2 things I would say about that. So one thing I would say is that in the fiction of this world, maybe the cells watch an anime about smaller cells and all the things that make up bacteria and viruses. And there's little dudes running around.
Yeah, but you know what? Even if they do, it's not blood.
2,
if you were the size of a bacteria and you cut one, red stuff wouldn't come out.
At no point did anyone say that was blood.
Yeah, they did.
When? No, they
I'm pretty sure I saw a subtitle that was like, oh, you got blood on you.
I would argue that is cytoplasm from the destroyed bacteria, or the stuff that's inside of a virus.
Right, cytoplasm would not, if they were that small, cytoplasm wouldn't be like that. They'd actually be able to see the components, right?
What do you think cytoplasm is?
Just goop.
Kinda. There's a structure, there's like a skeleton.
If you were that small that you were a cell, you could see molecules, like individual ones.
I think you underestimate or overestimate the smallness of those molecules. I'm going with the fact that is cytoplasm and remnants of proteins from the lysing or whatever that happened to those cells. And I'm confident that is how that fiction is going to work, and I'm just going to let it go.
I'm just saying that's kind of messed up. Why it was a conscious choice to put that there, because it's in every episode this happens. Also, you know, all the bacteria are just like monsters, and
but they're Dragon Ball monsters, and I love that.
No, but there seems to be some connection between them. Like in the second episode, when the pneumonia comes, they're like, it's like they knew the ones that came in the earlier episode and got killed. Like there's some relation between them.
Well, again, I think the person that this show is about.
Is there some like boss bacteria that's outside waiting just to get this body?
I feel like the only fiction that makes sense is that the body this is in is actually the body of that hobo in the Santa Claus outfit.
I think this
in
body.
Rick and Morty.
I think the body is in a hospital, which is the only way that would explain it. Like having the same bacteria keep coming at it all the time.
I'm gonna go with the fact that this canonically is linked to Rick and Morty, and it's that hobo. There's a whole episode in that show where basically they make Jurassic Park.
Does the hobo get pneumonia and then an abrasion and then a food poisoning?
Actually, kinda. The hobo is basically the host of Jurassic Park, and you shrink down and go into Jurassic Park, but instead of dinosaurs, it's inside of the body. So, and it's kind of. There's heavy adjacency between that episode of Rick and Morty and this anime, is all I'm saying.
Yeah.
And it would make sense.
So, I mean,
in the same universe.
I feel like if you're a person who's just like an anime fan who watches a lot of anime, this is probably going to be like a show that's on your list for this season.
If I still ran the RIT Anime Club, the second the 4th episode was out, we would show this at the club. Like, this would be a no-brainer. We would show this show.
Right, but is it an A anime?
No.
It's like a B anime.
It's like if Scrap Princess is a B+, this is a B. And in my mind, B means solidly entertaining, but I won't go out of my way to watch it if I have something better to watch.
Right. I think what it is that it's so light is that it's almost like convenient, which is a benefit. But
it also moves, because a lot of shows that are light, like
Right.
Mayashimon, as much as I wanted to like it, I got bored by it. Because not a lot happens.
But the thing is, it doesn't have, because it's so light and episodic, it doesn't have any sort of anything important or big tying it together.
Well,
so
yeah,
it's like
we've only seen
like,
3 episodes.
Right, but there's nothing to like care about. Literally the only plot is the red blood cell level.
Oh yeah,
white one,
I
right?
literally don't care if the red blood cell dies.
There's no.
All I want to see are individual scenes of the cells interacting.
Right, there is no big plot to care about, so there's no like investment.
Let's see.
Could be good or bad.
So here are the names of the manga volumes in order: Pneumococcus, cedar pollen allergy. That's very Japanese.
Ooh, okay.
Influenza, scrape wound, food poisoning, heat
So I guess
stress,
they skipped over the allergy one for the episode.
which I guess makes sense. Because I guess mast cells and all that would come up in there. Erythroblasts and myelocytes.
What?
Cancer cells, part 1.
Uh-oh.
Cancer cells, part 2.
This person's definitely in the hospital.
Yep.
I knew that.
Wow. Wow, that H. pylori, antigenic shift. This cancer, there's a further cancer cell arc later.
Uh-oh.
I feel like this person's not going to make it.
No, they're already immunocompromised. You learned that in episode 1. I told you.
If this show ends eventually with the person's dead and like social order breaking down and it turns into Mad Max inside of this rotting body, I will turn this into an A- anime.
Oh yeah, like
That alone,
all the bacteria come in and win the end.
because shows like this never go there. If this show,
It's just it's an apocalypse, like a real anime where everyone dies at the end.
if this show goes there, I'm telling you, A- anime.
That would be super cool.
That would be great.
Yeah.
All right, I think it was a solid show. I think that was good.